Hello, I'm Jim Harbaugh, head football coach of the Los Angeles Chargers and Duty Calls. I am at the NFL Combine today. Well, I wish I could be there in person with you all today. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to say a few words and share in this advocacy effort. I want to start by thanking today's speakers for their dedication to legal aid and taking the time today to inspire us all. As an American, really as a human being, each and every one of us should be entitled to fairness and equity when it comes to the justice system. The last thing that should matter is how much money we have. I've been a proud advocate for access to justice for over 30 years. During that time, millions of Americans still cannot afford the legal help they need when they face changes and challenges in their life. It's unfair, it's unjust, and it's un-American, and it's inhumane. In football, we talk a lot about the integrity of the game. Results can't be bought, they must be earned. The judicial system should be no different. Fortunately, I'm not alone in this fight. As you know, for me, it's the team, the team, the team. Today, we have a heck of a team lined up for this panel discussion, appropriately dubbed Leveling the Playing Field. Several leaders from Chicago's professional sports teams are here today to both celebrate LSC's 50th anniversary and speak to you about their commitment to ensuring the American civil justice system is, in fact, just. Moderating the conversation today is Mike Lafrano from the Chicago Cubs. Mike and I served together on LSC's Leaders Council, and I can think of nobody better to lead this panel. I hope everybody finds inspiration in today's conversation and engages in this dialogue with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. Without further ado, please welcome Mike Lafrano to the stage. Thank you and God bless.
The single greatest introduction of a lawyer. And like Coach Harbaugh said, this is a team effort, so we're going to hear in a moment from my colleagues, but I'll introduce them so you know who's here. Can you hear this? No? Is that better? Let's try this. Is that better? You heard the introduction though, right? It was great. And like Coach Harbaugh says, this is a team effort, so I'm going to introduce my colleagues who are here with me today. On the far left is Ron Padmanabhan, Chief Operating Officer and General Counsel of the Chicago Bulls. To my left, Maka Scott, Assistant General Counsel of the Chicago White Sox. And to my right, Laura Warren, Vice President and General Counsel of the Chicago Fire. And if you don't think the cause of access for justice brings people together, consider this. I went to the University of Illinois. I'm sitting here at Northwestern. I just got introduced by a guy from the University of Michigan. I'm the General Counsel of the Chicago Cubs. I'm here with someone from the White Sox, the Bulls, and the Fire, and we're all here to talk about access to justice. If you leave here today, remembering one thing from this panel, to me it would be not only to raise awareness and that we all share in this cause, but that business benefits too. I wanted to be here today, not only raise awareness to the importance of access to justice, but to say to other business leaders, whatever business you're in, that our country, our economy, our livelihoods all depend on a safe legal system, access to a legal system, and equality and equal treatment of everybody. If you leave here today, whether it's fighting housing crises in Chicago, whether it's protecting seniors from fraud, whether it's granting women and children access to programs they might not otherwise be denied, all of our teams are here to tell you that we know how important this is to us, and we want to share that and hope that everybody here shares in that support as well. Let's start in our discussion today, though. I want to kick it off talking about career paths, how we got to where we are, and why access to justice is important to us. And I guess since I talked about kicking it off, you're the soccer person. Laura, do you want to start?
I will. Nobody better to introduce me than Mike. Thank you, Mike. Well, listen, thanks for having us. We're happy to be here and couldn't get behind a more important cause. So very briefly from my standpoint, I actually, when we talk about my path, I grew up in a house of teachers and coaches. I was the lone renegade who decided to become a lawyer, but my household was all about sports. So people taught during the day, coached at night, and that was basically what our family time revolved around. So it's great to be back in sports. I was a Division III college athlete a long, long time ago, a mediocre one, but it was very core to who I was. Growing up, I was always playing a sport. So played volleyball and softball, ended up going to law school locally here at University of Chicago, and then went into private practice. And while I was there, doing a variety of commercial litigation, did some for higher education as well. And with that teacher connection, I ended up going in-house at DePaul University and took over the legal work for the athletics department. And when I did that, realized, oh, I feel like these are my people. This is definitely where I belong. And I think walking in as a former athlete and then having grown up with coaches and administrators had some credibility there to speak to how sports could operate and how the legal requirements, and as you know, lots of growing compliance in the NCAA realm, were really building. And while I was there, decided I really wanted to be doing sports full-time in my portfolio, so got involved with the ABA sports division. Ended up going to a local event here in Chicago to support women in sports, and the person hosting me worked for the Chicago Fire and said, hey, you know, we're looking for a lawyer. And it wasn't a job that was even posted, so it was purely random luck and circumstance that got me in the door. I have been there now for 4 years, love every minute of it. And it is definitely an enjoyable job and a challenging job, I'm sure, as all of you do. And the one thing I appreciated about the job when I took it is the wide variety of things that the Chicago Fire are doing in the community. I think sports is community, and walking into it, I did not have quite the understanding of how much they were investing in the community, and that really spoke to me. And I think if there's time, we may speak to that here as well. But I think access to justice, access in general, has been important to me in recognizing that aspect of sports. And also, prior to my current gig, had the opportunity to represent an individual who was seeking asylum in the United States, pro bono. And that experience was so significant for her. We were able to get her asylum here, and just watching the ability to change one person's life because they were able to get access to an advocate who could tell their story made me realize how important it is that we are able to tell as many stories as possible.
That's great. Maka, tell us how you got to where you are and why is access to justice important to you?
And I know you guys have heard my story many times, but I started off as an intern with the Diamondbacks and worked my way up. That's the short version. But to make sure that I'm, giving some thoughts and some inspiration to some of the law students in the room, I went for this internship that was going to be 3 months. I bombed the interview, didn't get the job, called afterwards trying to figure out how can I get this position, because in my mind, that was the position I needed to be in the space in which I wanted to be in, which was with a sports team. I had been a paralegal for 4 years with a small law firm here in Chicago, and so I really wanted to be in the sports space. Took the opportunity to listen to the feedback I got after I bombed the interview. The next year applied again for this 3-month internship. Was lucky enough to get it with the mindset of, come in and do good work, try to add value in whatever small way in which you can for every member of the team, and that worked out in my favor. The internship continually got extended, and I ended up being with the Diamondbacks for 6 years through 4 different titles. And then the Diamondbacks had treated me really well. I actually wasn't looking to make a move, but in line with the personality and character of the people that I was working with, they saw and heard about an opportunity with the White Sox. Similar title, but expanded role, and so recommended me for the position over at the White Sox. I've been there since 2020 and now entering my 11th season in baseball. What access to justice means to me? Well, being a Black woman, part of classes that have historically been marginalized and denied access to justice in law and later in practice, access to justice means everything to me. I'm not in court arguing cases, but I feel that I can make a difference in all aspects of my life, and whether it's volunteer work or board service or in my full-time position. You know, it's finding ways to make sure that I'm doing my part in a small way, and hopefully it's making a collective difference. So whether it's, you know, making sure the right things are being considered when drafting bylaws or creating policies, or, you know, conducting investigations with integrity, you know, things like that, but just finding ways in which I can kind of play my part.
Thank you, Mako. Ram, you're not only a lawyer, you're a chief operating officer. What role does Access to Justice play in your life?
Sure. I think, I guess just quickly I'll answer the other question, which is when I went to school here, graduated from here, I left here, went to work at 219 South Dearborn for one of Judge Pallmeyer's predecessors for a couple of years, and then was in the law firm. I was a fan. I was not athletic, despite my attempts otherwise. Assumed to be, I was very comfortable with a private practice at a couple law firms, but a portion of my work for a long time was representing sports clients on what were really routine corporate transactions, whether they were commercial agreements, acquisitions of that sort. Actually left private practice, went to work in-house at a large public company, and but kind of like Laura, I had connections in the sports industry, and when the Bulls were looking for somebody to come over and take over kind of both the legal function, but just generally oversee some of the sort of administrative and operations stuff, I got a call and was happy to do that, and I've been there 10 years. My role has, as Mike alluded to, is now expanded to overseeing essentially the business side of the operation and liaising with the basketball side on things that kind of working together and trying to keep us connected, both basketball and business. For us, you know, Laura alluded to this, and as did Maka, you know, sports teams occupy a really kind of interesting and unique place. We're private enterprises, but we are identified and sort of represent and embody our communities, maybe more than any civic or public organization. And I think everybody that steps into if they don't know it beforehand, they quickly realize the obligation that sports teams have to the community for all the support that we get. And so access generally is something that we all recognize needs to be improved, whether it's access to healthcare, access to education, and I think access to justice slides right in there as a priority as well.
I wonder, you know, I think this is what happens when you're late in the day, all the batteries are done. Here, I'll give it back to you. You know, we often get asked, the four of us and our colleagues at other teams, whether or not the teams get along. We, you know, obviously compete to win on the field, but off the field we share a lot in common. And one of the things we share in common is a commitment to our community. And I use the word community writ large, that is to say to Chicago, to the areas where our fans come from, and our fans come from all over the country. And to giving back in ways that will help those who are our fans and those who are members of our community thrive. I know it's important to us at the Cubs, and between our charitable foundation and our team, we will invest probably $5 to $6 million a year in building new sports facilities, in investing in safe spaces to play, and in helping kids and others develop into what we like to call major league citizens. I know all of the teams do that, and I wonder, Laura, if you would talk a little bit about the commitment of the Fire to communities around the city, and in particular to access to justice.
Happy to do that. Glad to have a mic to do so. Yeah, I think, as I referred to, I feel like that was one of the things that I really enjoyed about stepping into this role, is how much community involvement there is. So we do operate a not-for-profit foundation, and we are building mini pitches all across the city of Chicago in underserved areas. We run youth programming in the Chicago Public Schools. We are in 50 Chicago public schools and actually train teachers to be coaches. And then in terms of access, not necessarily to justice, but I think access again to sport or access for those who have not been included or represented previously, we are training all of our coaches to be aware and fluent in diversity, equity, inclusion issues, so that as you are training people, I mean, historically, it's not just about competition, you're developing the whole person and trying to make sure that you can speak to the issues that are happening and also let your players speak to each other and recognize their differences, who may be left out, how do you bring them into the fold, and also recognizing their privilege, that they're able to play that some people may not be able to play. And so how can we bring the game into more and more communities and give them access that way?
Maka, I know the Cubs and White Sox compete on the field, but off the field, we admire your efforts and the work that you're doing in Chicago. Do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yes, I will. I think we do a great job of the community in a lot of different spaces. So similar to the other teams, we have a nonprofit arm. We do a lot, of course, within our sports. So trying to reach out to the underserved community and get baseball into inner cities. I think we do a really good job with that program. We've seen some guys go to minor leagues and to the major leagues through that program. We also have programs related to cancer awareness. And one of the programs that I think I'm most proud of that we do is we do a grant program where we give out to a lot of different nonprofits, but this one is actually employee-led. So nonprofits that may not fit within our mission or somehow don't kind of fit within those strict guidelines for our larger grants, employees can recommend nonprofits and do the voting, and it's all, anonymous, and funding these nonprofits that may have not otherwise received funding. So that's honestly the program that I'm most proud of.
A lot of the same, I think, using our connections with basketball and trying to get kids out to play, and then connected with community through basketball, youth hoops initiatives and things of that sort. The other thing we would do, I'd say, access to community investment, access to resources to empower economically. We have a pretty robust Black-owned business program where we highlight, feature, and help get resources to communities. We live in and reside and host people on the West Side. It's our responsibility to the community there to help people who are trying to get businesses going, to give them the resources they need, financial and otherwise. Like, access to justice also means how do you set up a company? How do you properly document what you need to document? And so we're active in that program and collaborate with some of our corporate partners who also bring resources and other financial resources and other resources to help those communities and help the entrepreneurs that are budding in those neighborhoods to be successful.
So we are told, by the way, we are the last panel between y'all and a reception. So we will not take too much more time. We did promise we would be happy to take questions from anybody in the audience. So if people have questions, raise your hand or let us know, and we're happy to answer them. And if not, I've got one more I will throw out, which is, I heard Chief Judge Pallmeyer earlier talk about differences between pro se litigants and those who are represented. And I wonder if one or all of you might want to comment on, we all see in our roles different types of litigation, and like any business, now and again we'll get sued. And I wonder if anyone wants to comment for a moment on the difference between pro se litigants and those who are represented, and how your approach to those cases differs. Ram?
I've not had that experience, fortunately.
All right. Maka?
I will turn this one over to Laura.
I got this. I have had that experience. I would say, again, to me, it goes back to being able to tell stories and how you're able to do that when you have access that way, but also being able to then educate other folks if they're not familiar with the process. So as we run into issues where folks are stepping forward and saying, hey, I have a problem, I have an issue. That is absolutely something where it's just, you want to engage with them kind of as a partner to the extent that they'll allow you to, and figure out, is there a way that we can resolve this when they step forward without representation, because they do not necessarily have someone to tell their story or explain how it happened. So really being open and receptive to someone coming forward, trying to figure out if there's a way that you can work together, because obviously it's in both your interests to make sure that this person leaves satisfied and is thinking well of your organization, and is also kind of made whole to the extent that they can be.
Terrific. Question, Judge Pallmeyer.
We didn't hear about your history.
You didn't hear my history? I will talk about my history then. I grew up not too far from here, near Wrigley Field in Chicago. Always wanted to play shortstop for the Cubs, and went to Lane Tech High School and realized I couldn't hit a curveball, and decided a lawyer would be a better career path. I graduated, as I mentioned, from the University of Illinois, went to law school, joined political campaigns, and worked in politics and government for a number of years. And then came back to Chicago and started practicing law. Was a First Amendment lawyer at what was then Sun and Shine Nathan Rosenthal, and then went in-house at the Tribune Company. And in fact, when I went in-house, I was told, yes, we own a baseball team, but don't worry, you won't get much of a chance to work for the Cubs, because there's lots of other lawyers here and they do all of those things. But it turned out a few years later, the Cubs were getting ready to expand and improve Wrigley Field. They were looking to add a few more night games. There was a need for somebody who knew something about government and city ordinances and could work on night game issues, and also knew the community and had grown up near Wrigley Field. And I found myself in the right place at the right time, and someone said, do you want to go out to Wrigley Field? And I said, sure. Can I play shortstop? And they said, no, you can be the lawyer. I said, okay. And it's been a remarkable journey, and in the time I've been there, we've, with the blessing and the help and the leadership of the Ricketts family, we were able to invest and improve a ballpark that was in many cases in danger of falling down, and is today saved for another generation, and is not only a thriving home to the Cubs, but a great part of the economy in the neighborhood around the north side of Chicago. So that was my path, and feel like I have been privileged to be able to work there. I saw another question in the back. Saw a hand. Yeah.
Hi, so I was wondering if any of your programs can benefit from maybe an extra hand of volunteers, like if there is like a structure already in place that we can contribute when we cannot have like a big endeavor between a full-time job and the kids and what have, but maybe at night that we can contribute a couple of hours to give back to the community.
Well, we have a volunteer corps group, so you can check that out. We do a lot of different programs in which the community can participate, and you can choose which opportunities you want to be a volunteer for, and it really varies. Depends on what's happening that season. You can even make recommendations as to some nonprofit that you would suggest we work with.
Other questions? Hearing none, thank you for entertaining us today, and I'm going to turn it back to Ron Flagg to close us out.
I'm going to go to a more reliable mic, although there's no mic more reliable than our moderator. Thank you so much, Mike and Laura and Maka and Ram. Over the last 10 years, we have found that unexpected messengers are often LSC's most effective advocates, and we are really grateful for the four of you to be here today and show your support for LSC. Let's give them another round of applause. Thank you.